Hi, everyone, and welcome to Echoes of Destiny. I'm here with my co-host, Nicky Cooper, and it is the holidays coming up, so we just want to dive right in and just spend a few minutes with you and talk about the gifts of giving back. And I think Nicky can add to just how important it is to really give up your time and give service to others because we don't really understand how much we have in comparison to so many people. We take a lot of things for granted. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, nursing for such a long time, you have so much evidence that not everyone is in the same situation as you and not as lucky as you. There was a few years ago, I was working in a very rural area and I had asked an organization if they could help me to bring a little bit of joy for some of our most displaced families and managed to get them to organize specific gifts for children. And they wanted to know the gender of the child and the age group that they were looking at. And they had these little gift boxes. And almost every child in the region I got a gift for. So I took one of my sons in the car and we went up and down valleys. And it was such an extraordinary gift of learning for him because I don't think he'd realized how privileged, I don't mean entitled, but privileged. I don't think he realized how privileged he was. And I remember one particular parent coming out and saying, "Is it okay if I change the tag on this Christmas present?" I said, "Of course. This is for you to do with what you want." And she said, "This is the only present that will be under the tree for my child this year." And my son's face was just, yeah, just shock and in awe as well, I think, of what we were actually able to gift people at such a stressful time of year. Yeah, so yeah, an important to bestow that on our children, I think, particularly, and I found that very yeah, a very, very honest way of teaching them about what's really going on out there and how lucky they are.
I think that's a very important lesson for children to have, in all of our years in nursing, we do see so much lack, I want to say. We do have to send people into the community to, take care of themselves. And we don't realize even in services, the services that aren't provided for them, even food scarcity and things like that, where a lot of people are choosing between medication and eating. So, uh, I mean, when you look at things like that, basic necessities, it's really, it's just unbelievable, really. Like you
Mm.
just can't fathom it. But in New York, there's homeless everywhere, so I see it every day, up front and personal, and it's a little hard to watch. Um, but the soup kitchens, you were saying that you were taking your son to a soup kitchen. I have participated in many a soup kitchens, and I find that it's very rewarding and a very rich way to spend the holiday because despite what they don't have, they're very happy to be able to commune with other people and share that time regardless of where it is. They feel blessed to have a meal and to have that company. And when other people think of small things like that, they just don't see the same gratitude that people that don't get to have that every day really do. So what do you feel about going with your children? Is this their first soup kitchen?
Yeah, there will be. I spent the last 2, 3 years. Part of my role was going over and working with the homeless community. So I was doing that quite regularly, but it was 2 hours away from where I live. And I just last night, it's kind of timely, really. I saw a shout out for volunteers for this weekend, and so I've signed myself and the kids up um, to go and assist with it's like an outdoors because it's summer here in New Zealand. It's an outdoor food fest, really, and particularly just as it's just before Christmas, I think that's just such a phenomenal thing. Um, before I moved to New Zealand, I spent 2 years traveling on the road with my backpack, amazingly, across the world, and it was extraordinary. Some of the learnings that I had, that the most how I think a lot of the Western world perceive what's people that don't have very much. I think they perceive, yeah, I think there is a perception that they have lack, and they were the most happiest people I ever met, were the people that had the least.
Yes,
Um,
it's very true. I was just
it's
saying that to my husband.
extraordinary.
They're so much more humble and down to earth. I do a lot of community nursing every weekend. That's where I spend my weekends. I do the visiting nurse services, and people that really, really have nothing. Like, there was a story on the news the other day, broke my heart. Something uh, simple like a water main break in a certain area in the Bronx, but the flood was enormous inside their homes. And right before the Christmas, they were looking forward
Mm.
to the holiday and stuff like that. And many of them can't replace what they lost. And they were still just so grateful to be okay and their family to be okay. And it couldn't be a worse time for things like that to happen, but they do happen. They happen all over the world. And things like that make you feel a better understanding of how precious these things are, like those times with the family. So I don't know how their Christmas will be spent, but they're looking at some rough days ahead, right? So every day is a gift. And all the things that we have, like in New York, people complain about the prices and things like that, but if you can afford to pay those prices, you shouldn't be complaining, right? Because other
Yeah.
people just don't have that. So
Yeah, we see extraordinary, just in the last week we've had quite a enormous earthquake in Vanuatu in the Pacific Islands, about a 7.3. And I remember there was a few years ago now, gosh, it's hard to believe. Goodness, 13 years ago, we had some quite major earthquakes in the south of New Zealand where I live. And it was in a city that when we look at it, when we reflect back now, there were stories that people didn't really know their neighbors. They didn't know, many of the people in their own streets. And then they had this catastrophic, well, they had two catastrophic, the second one being the most catastrophic earthquakes. And suddenly they had something called the student army. These students from university were going out and with their spades and cleaning up for all of the elderly people. And it was such an extraordinary way that people responded, in a crisis. And I think, often we underestimate that in a crisis, people will pull together. And it's sad that it takes something as big as that for it to happen. But I think it also shows that when we hit rock bottom and when times are really hard, we have so much resilience, and we do have that innate way of reaching out for help or asking for help when we need it, and actually helping other people when they do need it. You see so many examples of that day to day. It's beautiful, really. But yeah.
I agree with you that it's sad that it has to come to a crisis for people to really reach out. During COVID, the part in the Bronx where I live, growing up, everybody was everybody's neighbor. It was a different time than it is now, and everybody really looked after each other's children. We communed together. We had block parties together, like cultural days. We had something called the PAL, right, where the police actually came into the community and kept us out of trouble. They played games with us and kept the children busy. So it was a different time, but everybody was family back then, regardless of anything else, whether you were family or not, you were family. And I hadn't felt like that in a really long time. The dynamics have changed dramatically. But when COVID happened, it felt like being home again. I know that
Mm.
that's odd. First I was back in the hospital, and I hadn't been in the hospital working in years, but I went in to help. So I was back in that setting, and I was like, wow, I'm home. So and then just everybody coming together. I mean, people from all over the world stopped what they were doing and came to New York to
Mm.
help. Doctors, eye doctors, all different kinds of practitioners, nurses everywhere. And I was just looking at that and seeing that
Yeah.
up front was like, oh my God, these people are all here to help us. It
Mm.
was just an amazing experience. And I remember when we would leave, at night, leave our shifts, and people just out in the streets clapping for us. People would go into their stores, even though a lot of the restaurants and things like that in the area were closed. People went in to their restaurants and cooked for the local hospitals and nurses and stuff. It was just such a profound time.
The village. It
Yeah,
felt like the village.
yeah.
Yeah.
The whole village to raise the
Yeah.
child. That's how it was growing up. And
Yeah.
times have changed, the world changes, but we allow those changes. We are part of them. We just move with it instead of holding on to those values. I feel sometimes is that you can't really say it's changed because we've all changed. We've all allowed that to transpire. So it's
We've
sad in a way.
overcomplicated it.
Yes. Yes, we have. So, what are you doing for the holidays? Anything special?
Oh, no, not really. Having spent the last number of years in farming, my husband was contracting. So making the hay, it's a terribly inappropriate time to have Christmas right in the slap bang in the middle of the summer holidays because it's kind of the busiest time for farmers to go out and prepare all the winter feed. So he only ever used to take Christmas Day off. Um, and so it was always very memorable. And we lived on, a 120-acre farm. So one of the traditions that we always used to have, which is kind of weird for me coming over from the Northern Hemisphere, was that we would have a massive water fight on Christmas Day, and every year it would get bigger and better. They were like water cannons. Me and my husband, it was all on water balloons, hose pipes. It was always get mum. But since 3 years ago when we sold the farm and moved into a small town here in New Zealand, the kids are a little bit more self-conscious and they're teenagers now. So I don't know that we'll be doing it this year. We did try and do it last year, but it didn't quite have the same impact. You can't scream as loudly when you're not in the middle of nowhere. You're being
Yes.
chased by three boys with a large amount of water. But we've done a few things. So we always take the dog for a walk on the beach now. Where we lived, it was very much mountains and lakes and rivers. We never used to do the beach thing. So actually walking the dog on the beach on Christmas Day is beautiful. My husband always used to take the boys to the local cemetery to lay flowers that we'd picked from our gardens to his parents and his siblings that were no longer with us. So that was a kind of a tradition that they've always done as well. Um, I've yet to have eaten a turkey here in New Zealand after this is my 20th Christmas here in New Zealand, and um, it's very much barbecues and summer festivities, being right down in the Southern Hemisphere. Um, One day I'll have a turkey. I'm not sure the kids would go for the turkey and the Brussels sprouts and all of the trimmings and stuff, but I've been here 20 years. I've had 30 years, 31 years in the UK before I moved here. So I probably got to match that with 30 years in New Zealand before summer Christmas feels normal and, sledging and Christmas carols with woolly hats and all of those things that we do.
I
It's
think you
so
kind of
different.
need, yeah, I think you kind of need the winter. We haven't had any snow yet, and I'm a winter baby, so I love the snow.
Ah,
This is the time of year that everything is right in Andra's world. My thyroid's functioning at maximum capacity. Everything's going good in my world, right? So, yeah. So,
it's weird. It's weird having it so hot and sunny and everyone wearing bare minimum clothes and whinging and complaining and about how hot it is and stuff. And I remembered my first year here. There was I'd arrived and there was another couple of Brits and a lovely nurse from we were all intensive care nursing then, another nurse from New Delhi in India. And I remember we all went down on the Christmas day to jump in the sea. So it was the first time any of us had jumped in the sea on on Christmas Day. It was extraordinary. Yeah, one of those weird things for us because we'd never do that in the UK. Obviously, it's too cold for us.
yeah, definitely a little too cold. But I'm looking forward to just some downtime. I'm off for a couple of weeks from my regular job, and I do the community nursing, and they seem to have booked me out pretty much. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'm like, hey, I said I was on vacation, and I think they have me scheduled 12 or 14 days, and I'm like, what?
My goodness. I can't
Yeah.
ever imagine you not working actually.
So, but it's what I love doing, you know. I don't have any wee ones at home. You know, if I did, I'd be home. But the girls are grown. There's no grandbabies yet to speak of. So um it allows other people that do have those little ones at home to go and work. But the families that I go in to help are their children, and some of them are adult children, and they have special needs, and they're really round the clock care, and they do need reprieve. So
Hmm.
it's a nice way to spend the day, you know, and help them out with those needs so they can be with the rest of their family and go and enjoy their holiday. I don't mind. To me, it's just another day. I'm working for my birthday too because it's Christmas, New Year's, then my birthday. I'm working my birthday. It's just another day. Funny thing, I've always been making myself a year older, so when I get to that point, I'm like, it's not a big deal. So so I was telling someone I was going to be 59, and my husband said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Do the math." I said, "Really, really? I'm just going to be 58." He said, "Yeah." So I was laughing because I do that every year, and I forget what year I'm celebrating. But I've been doing it since I was a little girl because my sister had this thing about birthdays.
Mm.
She didn't like aging. And I remember when she turned 30, she talked herself into being sick and had exploratory surgery, and nothing was wrong with
Oh.
her. But the fact that she just turned 30. So it was something that we did after that to make her feel a little better, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, crazy, right?
I was living in, gosh, it was tw or 22 years ago, I was living in Egypt and I was teaching nursing over there. And I remember over there, the Coptic Christians celebrated Christmas on the 6th of January. They didn't celebrate it the same way that we did on the 25th of December. And so I was working, I was a clinical nurse educator, and I was working on the Christmas day and the Boxing Day. Um, but I remember the whole of the staff of the hospital, the Christians and the Muslims, they all would say Kulisena went to Tayepa, which meant happy celebration, happy holiday for me, because uh, they knew it was a date that meant something to me, which was really awesome. You know, that they really made it special for me because they knew it was something for me. So I've never forgotten that extraordinary experience. Doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, people always know, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So what's next for you? Because you have worked in so many different areas, like of nursing, and you've lived all over the world. Will you stay where you are for a while, or
Oh
are you?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
New Zealand's this. Yeah, I hung up the backpack after 2 years of traveling. I hung up the backpack here. You know, in February it'll be 21 years since I landed in New Zealand. And I think I must have known because I shipped 12 tea chests out from the UK when I came this way. I was originally going to work in Boston, but got a little bit sidetracked and ended up in New Zealand. Very strange. But I I've just completed my diploma in clinical and advanced hypnotherapy, where I'm just just in the process of ending that. So as another spoke, I'm adding to the wheel. I'm working a lot in population health at the moment and really trying to support the health needs and the changing health needs of for small children, so that we don't have those exhaustive cost burdens later in life. So that's a very big project. We did a lot of collating, or a lot of collection of data this year, and a lot of surveying anyone that's working in education and parents, and how things are going. So there's a very large body of work to be done in that aspect. So professionally, that's probably what I'm going to be doing. But I will be doing a lot more, I guess, parent coaching. That seems to be the niche that sits most with me. It seems to be what I'm most known for. And adding all of the other little bits and pieces that I do. I still love to learn, so I still have so many things. Every time I see something, oh gosh, I'd love to do that.
I'm
Sometimes you have to put a
always
leash on
doing.
yourself.
I think it's just part of nursing because we're lifelong learners. We're always
Yeah,
learning. So I think it's just like an addictive quality that the nurses have because we just love learning.
there's
So
just so
I've
much
been doing
change
a lot
though,
of.
isn't there?
Yeah, I love writing, so I'm actually diving into that area to learn more about writing styles and stuff
Mm,
like that. Just for myself, not for anything. I've always been fascinated by like psychotherapy and stuff like that, so I might even follow that route too. Um, I just enjoy it. I enjoy the whole process, the critical thinking aspect of it, because as nurses, it doesn't matter what we embark on, that critical thinking is always there. It always takes
mm.
place. Well, if I do this, I get this, and why is this? You have to just kind of figure things out. So I'm excited to see you on that journey, and I think you'll be an amazing parent coach because I think you have a very strong understanding of the needs of the children,
Mm.
and that says a lot about the public health that you've been embarking in all this time, setting up new programs there to really help the teachers deal with the children that have been dysregulated. So I think that really is a two part, so that you're
Mm.
working with teachers in the schooling system, but you're helping the families when the child gets home so they do know how to collaborate and for the benefit of that child, because you're at home so much of the day and you're at school so much of the day, so both parties really have to be able to bring something to the table. There needs that consistency because children thrive on that consistency.
They do, and in today's world, unfortunately, we're living in a world where it's not necessarily a choice anymore. It's a necessity for both parents to be working, and so something has to give, and supporting the people that are supporting the children. There's always there's always going to be that. So that these are kind of extraordinary times. We're definitely moving into a different era, I think, in working with this age group, and to support parents. I've always said, I know I've said it to you before, that I don't believe anyone ever wakes up with that, how am I going to screw up my kids thing. Sometimes it's just really hard for parents, you know. So however we support whoever's the with children, whether that's teachers, healthcare professionals or parents, whoever's with children on a day-to-day basis, it's important that they are supported as much as those children, because it does take a village to raise healthy, happy, thriving individuals, for their futures. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do, Andra. I'm really excited, little bit nervous, and excited at the same time. So I just, it's going to be interesting times going ahead. So yeah.
You're going to be amazing. We're going to leave it there because I do have to hop into something else. I'm in my pajamas. Like, who I think I am? I came home and I said, I'm getting into my pajamas because I just had the end. I just said, that's enough for today. Packing it in. I'm going to go talk and meet with some friends, and that's it. So I just wanted to really spend this time with you before the holiday and see how you're enjoying your holiday. And I think the message is important that people understand the concept that sometimes you get more when you give of heart and spirit than you could actually ever imagine or anticipate. So give of your time, give of your heart, and understand that other people are not celebrating the same Christmas you might be at home, and maybe be a little kinder in the way you approach people. Maybe hold that door, maybe smile a little more, and most of all, have a happy holiday. Be safe, be healthy. To your health. Have a good night.
Kakite.